Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Navigating the Digital Product Passport, What are your compliance obligations? So as always, just a little bit of orientation about this webinar platform before I introduce our speakers for today. The webinar slides are available to the left side of your screen, along with a few helpful links if you would like to explore and learn more about compliance and risks and how we can simplify and accelerate your compliance processes. We want this webinar to be as engaging as possible, so please do send us any questions you may have and we'll aim to address them during the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. But if we can't get to your questions during the live portion of this webinar, we'll make sure to follow up with you directly. And if you would like to submit a question, please use the Ask a Question widget at the left side of your screen. At any time, if you're interested in having a member of our team follow up with you outside of the Q&A session, please also use the Start a Conversation button at the bottom of your screen. And last but not least, the webinar recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. My name is Orla Morris, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Compliance and Risks. And I'm delighted to be joined by Dila Shen, Global Regulatory and Requirements Compliance Specialist here with Compliance and Risks. Dila is a Turkish qualified lawyer and sworn translator for 15 years with extensive experience in AI policy. She's been working as a Global Regulatory and Requirements Compliance Specialist at Compliance and Risks for 5 years. And prior to joining us, Dila worked for global companies such as Lehman Brothers, Holdings Incorporated, ADP, and several different law firms in Turkey as legal counsel for several years. Dila holds a triple LLM in European Master in Law and Economics from the Universities of Bologna, Ghent, and Haifa, and an LLB from Yeditepe University, where she was awarded a full merit-based scholarship by the Turkish government. She also holds a BA in Communications and has further developed her expertise in AI through an advanced certification from the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Policy in Washington, D.C., subsequently becoming a team leader. Dila is an AI policy group member of CAIDP's AI Policy Clinic and an active member of the Istanbul Bar Association's AI Working Group. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dila.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
We're also joined by Michelle Walsh, an Irish qualified lawyer currently living in Belgium with over 16 years experience in global environmental and product regulation. Michelle's role involves tracking key regulatory trends in legislation, with her insights and analysis helping clients meeting their essential legal requirements relevant to their business needs. She has a particular interest in sustainability and circular economy, with her specialty areas in circular economy, eco-design, energy efficiency, ESG, sustainable resource use, waste electrical and electronic equipment, and the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle.
Thanks, Orla. Hi, everyone. Really looking forward to the webinar today. Thanks.
Brilliant. And last but certainly not least, we're also joined by Andrew O'Neill, a regulatory compliance specialist here also with Compliance and Risks, who has been working with the company since 2024 and based in Dublin. In his role, Andrew provides expertise in a number of regulatory areas, including toy safety, batteries, wireless, EMC, general product safety, and low voltage. Prior to joining Compliance and Risks, Andrew worked for over 10 years in Ireland's public sector, enforcing the regulations mentioned above. This has given Andrew a unique perspective on how regulators enforce legislation, and he also has an extensive knowledge on some of the most common issues economic operators, such as manufacturers, importers, distributors, and fulfillment service providers face in the ever-changing regulatory landscape. Thank you for joining us today, Andrew.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to giving everybody the presentation.
Brilliant. So before we kick off the webinar, I would like to provide a background about compliance and risk for those who are joining this series for the first time. At Compliance and Risks, our mission is to help ensure global companies have the tools and information to build safe, sustainable products in a world full of change. We are the trusted product compliance technology provider for the world's leading brands and have spent 2 decades honing the digital tools, expertise, and content you need to stay ahead of the dynamic regulatory landscape and prove your product's compliance, both protecting your brand and helping to drive your growth. At Compliance and Risks, we have the world's most comprehensive regulatory database with over 100,000 regulations historically available in C2P. With the global regulatory coverage and expertise across over 10 industries, we understand that regulatory compliance definitely doesn't sleep. And our regulatory experts team is truly global, with 28 languages collectively spoken across the team, all fortified by our 30 knowledge partners. As mentioned, C2P is our enterprise SME-led software, the key to unlocking market access as new products can be designed and built with full confidence you've met all compliance obligations. This includes early warning alerts, impact probability, and productivity workflow tools, and so much more. And with that, I am delighted to hand it over to you, Dila.
Thank you so much, Orla. So, hi everyone, and thanks again for joining us today. Today we will explore what is Battery Passport, why it's your battery's ticket to the EU market, and how to ensure each one has its papers in order by the crucial 2027 deadline. And the EU is setting new entry requirements for products, and this passport is the key. To understand the digital battery passport, we must first recognize the new legal reality. The EU is officially repealing the existing battery directive as of 18th of August 2025. With a direct applicable regulation. This is not a minor update. It's a complete overhaul driven by the shortcomings of the previous legislation. The old rules led to fragmented collection and recycling rates across member states and offered almost no transparency into a battery's manufacturing process or supply chain. This new regulation addresses those failures by establishing a comprehensive full life cycle model. It governs everything from the social and environmental impacts of raw material extensions like cobalt and lithium to the carbon intensity of manufacturing, all the way through the enabling second life applications and mandating specific material recovery targets at end of life. It creates a single harmonized set of rules for anyone placing batteries on the market, a phenomenon known as the Brussels effect, which is effectively setting a new de facto global standard for the industry. If you want to sell batteries in the EU, you must meet this criteria regardless of where you are based. The new regulation was published and entered into force in 2023 as an integral part of the Strategic Action Plan for Batteries and the EU Green Deal. The goal is zero pollution and circular economy to make batteries fit for the Green Deal. This regulation imposes obligations on economic operators placing batteries on the market or putting them into service. Economic operators are any natural or legal persons involved in making batteries available or putting them into service in the EU. The regulation assigns responsibilities across the battery lifecycle, including manufacturing, importing, distributing, and fulfillment. You can find the definition of all these economic operators under Article 3 of the regulation. There are also two other important definitions we have to understand. The first one is placing on the market, which means the first supply for distribution, or use in the EU, and the second one is putting into service, which means the first actual use in the EU. Okay. So what kind of batteries need to follow this new regulation? The regulation applies to all categories of batteries placed on the market or put into service within the EU, regardless of whether they were produced in the Union or imported, and regardless of their shape, volume, weight, design, material composition, chemistry, or use or purpose. From the small batteries powering portable devices to the large ones in electric cars and industrial equipment. Whether you manufacture the battery itself or import products containing batteries, this regulation impacts your journey. It covers all battery types as products and also the batteries in products. The following categories of batteries you can see here are explicitly listed in the regulation. The only exceptions are batteries specifically for military and space use. It's crucial to correctly identify your battery category, as the rules differ slightly. If a battery fits multiple categories, the strictest rules apply. The battery regulation is a very broad regulation and contains sustainability, safety, labeling, marking, and information requirements, as well as restrictions on substances, collection, treatment, and reporting requirements. We are just going to focus on the digital battery passport today, because the battery passport is at the heart of this regulation. And the battery passport is the first implementation of the digital product passport within the EU and is recognized as a key instrument in the European twin transition, which is designed to address two challenges. The first one is the green transition towards a sustainable and low carbon economy, and the second one is the digital transformation of society. The digital product passport, which I will use DPP for it, is a unique electronic record for each individual battery, mandated by Article 77 of the regulation. This is a crucial distinction. It's not a badge of certificate. Each battery gets its own unique digital identity. It functions as a digital certificate of conformity and transparency, providing a comprehensive set for batteries' entire life cycle. The responsibility of compliance with the provisions for the battery passport should lie with the economic operator that places the battery on the market. The battery passport shall be accessible through a QR code referred in Article 13.6, which links to a unique identifier that the economic operator placing the battery on the market shall attribute to it. For a battery that has been subject to preparation for reuse, preparation for repurposing, or manufacturing, the responsibility for the fulfillment of the obligations shall be transferred to the economic operator that has placed that battery on the market or put it into service. Such battery shall have a new battery passport linked to the battery passport or passports of the original battery or batteries. A battery passport will chase once the battery undergoes recycling in accordance with Article 77.8. The DPP requirement, the Digital Product Passport requirement, is precisely targeted from 18th of February 2027. It's mandatory for three key categories. First one is electric vehicle batteries. The second one is LMT batteries, which means light means of transportation, which power vehicles like e-bikes, e-scooters, and electric mopeds. And third one is the industrial batteries with a capacity exceeding 2 kilowatt hours. This is a broad category that includes not only large battery energy storage systems used for grid stabilization, but also batteries used to power industrial equipment like electric forklifts or autonomous mobile robots in warehouses. It's important to understand that while other categories like the portable AA batteries in your remote or the startling light and ignition battery that starts your internal combustion engine car are exempt from the full dynamic DPP, they are not exempt from transparency. They still require a QR code, but it links to a more static and limited set of information focused on safe disposal and recycling. This comprehensive scope ensures that all market participants have clear obligations. The DPP is not a single open document. It's not a single open document. It's a sophisticated system with tiered access to protect confidential information while promoting transparency. So let's break it down. First, the public tier, and the information in this tier will be accessible to the general public. Anyone can scan the QR code to see general information like manufacturer and battery chemistry. More importantly, they will see key performance indicators of sustainability, the battery's carbon footprint class, a summary of the company's ethical sourcing efforts, and the declared percentages of recycled cobalt, lead, lithium, and nickel inside. Second, the restricted tier for business users. The battery's owner or an independent operator like a repair shop or a second life company can access a deeper layer of technical data. This is where they find the critical state of health parameters, which are essential for assessing a used battery's residue value. They also get access to detailed dismantling information, such as exploded diagrams and step-by-step disassembly instructions, which are vital for enabling safe repair and remanufacturing. Finally, the confidential tier for authorities. The information in this tier will be accessible only to notified bodies, market surveillance authorities, and the EU Commission. This is the evidence locker. It contains the full unabridged compliance files, the detailed test reports, the complete carbon footprint calculations based on the EU product environmental footprint methodologies, and the full due diligence reports that prove compliance with ethical sourcing obligations. This tier system is the core mechanism that makes the entire regulation enforceable. Another important part to understand who is responsible for fulfilling the battery passport requirement. As you see here, here are some scenarios for you to grasp the logic a bit. So if the battery placed on the market offline, or if online, but the online seller is established in the EU and it's placed on the market from inside the EU, the manufacturer is responsible for fulfilling the battery passport requirements. If the battery placed on the market is from outside the EU, then the importer is responsible for fulfilling the battery passport requirements. If the online seller is not established in the EU and the battery is marketed to EU customers, the manufacturer or importer will be responsible for fulfilling the battery passport requirements, depending on who's targeting the EU customers. And lastly, if the online seller is not established in the EU and the battery is marketed to non-EU customers, the battery passport requirements doesn't apply. There's also a possibility to transfer of responsibility. This is one of the most critical mechanisms within the entire regulation. the transfer of responsibility for the digital battery passport. So the foundational rule is simple. Whoever first places the battery on the EU market is legally liable for its digital record. However, the regulation anticipates the circular economy and creates a clear chain of custody. Let's look at case one, which is crucial for the Second Life market. If you take a used electric vehicle battery, test it, and then place it back on the market as a home energy storage system, you are now considered the economic operator for the new repurposed product. The responsibility for the DPP transfers entirely to you. You are legally required to update its digital record to reflect its new status and, most importantly, its current state of health. This provides transparency and confidence for the next buyer. Without this transfer, the original electric vehicle manufacturer would remain liable, which would be an unworkable system. In the second case, it's more of a supply chain scenario. Imagine an original manufacturer sells a large stock of industrial batteries to distributor A, who places them on the market. Distributor A is responsible for the digital product passport. But before any are sold to end users, distributor A sells this entire stock to distributor B. In this instance, the legal responsibility for the accuracy of those DPPs transfers to distributor B. The key takeaway here is that responsibility is not static. It follows the commercial control of assets. This necessitates robust, legally sound contractual agreements between parties. When you are buying or selling batteries, whether new or used, your contracts must now explicitly address the transfer of DPP data, access rights, and legal liability. This is a fundamental change to how the battery value chain must operate. Now let's check the timeline. The 2027 DPP deadline is the final milestone, but the enabling work must be completed much sooner. I didn't talk about other requirements in detail because of the time constraints, but the most urgent and foundational deadline is the 18th of August 2025. Just 2 months from now, by this date, your supply chain due diligence policies for materials like cobalt, lithium, and nickel must be fully operational and, crucially, third-party verified. This means having a management system aligned with OECD guidelines and undergoing a successful audit. Failure here has a cascading effect on your ability to comply later. Next, by February 2026, the carbon footprint declaration for industrial batteries is due. This is not a simple estimate. It requires a full life cycle assessment. Then in August 2006, the new physical labels, including the QR code, must appear on your products. All of these are prerequisitions for the final go-live date of 18th of February 2027, when the full DPP must be active. These are not sequential tasks that can be handled one after another. They are parallel work streams that must be managed simultaneously, starting now. To conclude, the message is clear. The time for action is now. The deadlines are real and the work is deeply interconnected. Your first major compliance gate is just 2 months away. This is fundamentally a cross-functional challenge. Your legal, procurement, and sustainability teams must work together to build the necessary systems. But beyond the challenge, there is immersive opportunity. Use this regulation as a catalyst to innovate, to build a more resilient and transparent supply chain, and to create a brand based on verifiable data. And finally, remember that the framework we have discussed today, the digital record, the tiered data access, the focus on life cycle sustainability, is the blueprint for the future. The Battery Passport is the pilot program for the EU's wider eco-design for sustainable products regulation, or ESPR. The mechanisms you build to comply with this regulation will be adapted for textiles, electronics, and construction materials in the coming years. Mastering this now is not just about selling batteries in 2027, it's about future-proofing your business for the next decade of global trade. Thank you so much, and over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Dila. That was so interesting on batteries and wonderful overview. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm going to take you into the world of eco-design and sustainable products. So we have a new framework regulation. This is replacing the Eco-Design Directive, and its aim is extremely ambitious. What it wants to do is make sustainable products the norm across all products placed on the EU market. So there are only a few limited exceptions to this regulation, and it applies to B2C, B2B, to final products and intermediate products. So we have a really, really broad scope in this framework. And what it does, it sets out the framework to enact implementing regulations, which are known as delegated acts. These will set out circular economy requirements for different products. So when I'm talking about circular economy requirements is what I'm sure you're all very familiar with. These are requirements around durability, reusability, upgradability, repairability, recyclability, efficiency, not just energy efficiency, which we saw on the Eco-Design Directive, but efficiency across water use and material and resource use. Minimum recycled content is the real trend that we're seeing now in regulations. This is going to be a key component of these delegated acts. There's going to be carbon footprints, environmental footprints. And the idea is these circular economy requirements will remove the worst performing products from the market. How this is communicated is contained in the digital product passport. So you have all your performance requirements, and the digital product passport is the new digital tool to provide and communicate this information. So the passport will include things like product performance, so repairability or a durability score, the carbon footprint or environmental footprint, which will be based on classes to be determined by the EU Commission. It'll contain unique identifiers, the identifier for the product, for the operator, and also the facility where the product was manufactured, information on the product itself, installation, on use and repair. The idea is that information will be used to extend the life cycle of the product through durability and longevity of the product. There'll be data for end-of-life treatment operators. So it's not just a tool for consumers. It will have, similar to the battery passport, there'll be different access levels depending on where you are and what information you need. Details on substances of concern. Now, this is quite an important one. So I'm sure everyone's really familiar with substances of very high concern, which we are familiar with under the EU REACH regulation. The substances of concern is actually a broader category, and it includes substances that could hinder or have a negative effect on recycling or reuse. So there could be a larger number of substances included in this category, which will need to be reported in the DPP. So this is one to be really careful of. It'll also have a certification information, such as your declaration or certification certificates, information on the manufacturer and importer, and also the DPP service provider hosting a backup of the copy of the DPP. So all this information is going to be contained in the digital product passport. The idea is it's going to create transparency across the value chain. There will be different access rights depending on who needs to use the information, and different confidentiality levels similar to the battery passport. So if you're a consumer, manufacturer, repairer, refurbisher, recycler, or you're a competent authority, there will be different access rights to what information you can get to. The EU Commission is tasked with setting up a digital registry to store the unique identifiers. This needs to be done by July 2026. It also needs to set up a web portal so you can search for the information included in the DPP. So obviously having a really robust cybersecurity and protection of IP is going to be crucial for this type of system to work across the EU. So what are they doing? So interesting. So the first thing is the DPP is essentially a data carrier. It has to be on the product or in the product, its packaging, and in the documentation accompanying the product. So they have asked the CEN, which is the European Committee for Standardization, together with Senelec, which is the European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardization, to, by the end of 2025, to develop standards for the DPP. This mandate has asked them to develop standards on the unique identifiers, the data carriers, the access rights and business confidentiality, the interoperability, data processing, data storage, data authentication, and the application programming interfaces for the product's lifecycle. Extremely technical, but this standards development is going to be key how the DPP will be harmonized across the EU. And we know that CEN and Senelec are actively engaging with national standards body. For example, the German Institute for Standardization is very involved as well in helping them with the development of these standards. We also know that there are other initiatives that they're looking at. The United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, together with the International Standards Organization, has a joint initiative developing an international standard which will be contain core principles for developing a global DPP standard system. And this is ongoing at the moment. For those who are really interested in the standards process, you can get further information on this on their website. So what products are we looking at? The ESPR, the first working plan, was published recently in April. Now, this lists the priority products which the EU Commission is going to look at for future eco-design measures under this framework, and also gives the timeline for adoption. So they have selected 4 new product groups, and the first is textiles and apparel. So the timeline for adoption there is 2027, tires, again, 2027, furniture in 2028, and mattresses in 2029. Now, as I mentioned, this framework regulation allows also for measures to be enacted on intermediate products. And they've selected 2 intermediate product groups. These are iron and steel, which we're going to see a measure in 2026, as well as aluminium. Coupled with that, there's going to be 2 horizontal measures. So the way the framework is set out, it allows not only for vertical regulations, which are product specific, but horizontal measures, which can cover numerous product groups together. It's selected, it's going to have a repairability regulation that will look at things like consumer products or small household appliances. And the plan does say that there will be a preparatory study launched soon to define the product scope of these products. So if you are a manufacturer of consumer electronics or small household appliances, it's one to really look at. The other one is a recycled content and recyclability regulation for EEE. This is expected to be adopted in 2029. Again, it will be a horizontal measure which will cover numerous electronic product groups together. Coupled with that, the plan explains that there are a number of energy-related products that they are also going to have eco-design and energy labeling measures for over the next few years. Some of these are carried over from the last Circular Economy Action Plan, but there's 4 new ones. So the new ones are low temperature emitters, there's electric vehicle chargers, professional laundry, which is your professional washing machines, and professional dishwashers. So the timeline is in 2026, there's going to be an energy labeling measure for low temperature emitters. Household and professional dishwashers will have eco-design and energy labeling requirements, as well as local space heaters will have an energy labeling requirements as well. In 2027, we're going to see a new measure for eco-design and energy labeling of electronic displays. This will replace the current regulation. In 2028, you're going to see electric vehicle chargers, electric motors, household refrigeration and refrigeration with direct sales functioning, which are used in supermarkets. There are going to be new measures in 2028. 2029, it's going to be the turn of lighting products. And then in 2030, they're looking at welding equipment, mobile phones and tablets, an eco-design measure for local space heaters, tumble dryers, as well as standby and off-mode consumption, which covers numerous electronics. So a lot's going to be happening, very ambitious for the next 5 years. I'm just going to take a very quick look at some of these priority products. Textiles, and as I mentioned, the timeline for adoption of a measure under this new framework for textiles is 2027. Interestingly, the plan is that it's going to exclude footwear. Footwear is considered quite a complex, I suppose, product group. What the Commission is planning to do is launch a sustainability study by the end of 2027 to specifically look at footwear and how this is going to fit in. So at the moment, it hasn't said that textiles will be a part of the, or textiles will be under a new regulation 2027, but footwear is being treated separately. I often get asked by our customers, what's the definition? What's it going to be? How can what's the limitation on the scope? The plan doesn't give you that information. So what I always look at is official sources, studies that you can look at. And the Joint Research Commission came out with a really good study in November 2024. This looked at product definitions and potential eco-design requirements for the priority product groups. And it suggested that for textiles, the definition should include any product containing at least 80% textile fibers by weight. So they've suggested a very broad definition. It's important as well that any eco-design measure works together with the textile labeling regulation, which is also currently under review. And another study which is worth looking at if you're interested in textiles is the Parliamentary Research Service came up with a report on textiles in July 2024 and a recommendation of what it should look like. And it recommended that they should be introduced on a phased basis. So kind of a minimal, easy, soft DPP in 2027, an advanced DPP in 2030, and a fully circular DPP by 2033. So the suggestion or the recommendation is that we will see this kind of phased approach brought in for these new product groups. Tires is another one that has been selected, and the timeline for adoption is 2027. This study from the JRC has suggested that it's limited to car tires, van tires, and heavy-duty vehicle tires. Tires are currently regulated under the tire labeling regulation, so these measures need to interconnect or work together in harmony with existing requirements, especially around digitalization of labeling. And why was it selected? There is a lot of potential to improve recyclability and recycled content of tires, and particularly around waste management and how they're treated at the end of their life. Next one is furniture, again, new priority product. We're looking at the timeline for adoption is 2028. This study has suggested it should include indoor and outdoor use furniture, so very, very broad. And the reason why, again, there's huge potential to improve resource use, affecting production and the supply of materials. And the fourth new product group that they have selected are mattresses. The JRC study is looking at suggesting it should include mattresses for just indoor use. So camping or external mattresses would be excluded. Be interesting to see will that be limited in this way. There is a high potential to improve waste generation from these products, as well as lifetime extension and material efficiency. So we're expecting to see the timeline there for adoption is 2029. So how do you prepare? This is something I always get asked. There are a lot of studies out there on DPP. I've seen a lot of different websites. What I would suggest you stick to official sources and official studies. Because a lot of there's a lot of websites out there just speculating on what's going to be included in the DPP. A really good project is the Surpass 2 project. It's an innovation project funded by the EU Digital Europe Programme, and it's ongoing till April 2027. And what that's doing, it's looking at DPP functionality across 4 sectors. So it's textiles, EEE, tires, and construction materials. So that is definitely one to look at, and they're always actively engaging with stakeholders. And also there is a public consultation on at the moment from the Commission. It's still open until July 2025, and that's for service providers who will store and process DPP data on behalf of economic operators that are not doing this themselves. So again, look at official sources, and I would suggest official projects. Okay. And that's just a very good overview of the ESPR. And I'm going to pass you on to Andrew to take you through toys. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks very much, Michelle. That's a very ambitious plan for the next 5 years. It's going to be a bit of a trope for us, I'd say. So welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk to you about toys and be more specific around the DPP in relation to how it is going to affect toys in the near future. So the European Union recently agreed on new toy safety rules regarding the 2009 Toy Safety Directive in a comprehensive toy safety regulation. This change means the rules will be directly applicable to all EU countries, ensuring consistency. The new regulation raises the bar on toy safety. It bans more hazardous chemicals, introduces digital traceability for every toy, tightens oversight of online sales, and updates safety requirements for modern toys like smart or connected toys. So over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to break down why this update was needed and what it means for all of us in the toy industry and the consumer safety community. So let's begin. So here we say why the EU toy safety rules are being updated and turned into a regulation. The main driver was an evaluation of the existing toy safety directives, which revealed several gaps. So first was harmful chemicals. The old rules were fairly strict, but regulators found that they needed to be even more tougher to protect children's health. For example, substances that disrupt hormones or cause other long-term health effects weren't explicitly covered before. Second, online sales and enforcement under the old regime, often outside the EU, could easily sell unsafe toys online into the European market. And then national enforcement differed by country as well. So dangerous toys were still put through onto the market. Towards the toy market has changed with technology. We now have smart toys and connected gadgets for kids, which pose new risks like data privacy and psychological effects that in 2009 rules did not foresee. Moving forward, by moving from a directive to a regulation, the EU ensures uniform rules and enforcement in all member states. So there's no more varying national transpositions. So in short, the update was needed to better protect children from emerging risks and to modernise the framework for today's digital marketplace. So one of the biggest changes is the strengthening of the chemical safety requirements for toys. The EU already banned toys from containing substances that are carcinogenic, mutagenic, or toxic for reproduction. These are short CMRs. Now they are going further. The new rules ban an expanded list of dangerous chemicals. This includes any chemicals known as endocrine disruptors, which can interfere with hormone systems. These can affect children's growth and development, so now they're explicitly forbidden in toys. Similarly, chemicals that can harm the respiratory system, cause serious organ toxicity, or trigger strong skin allergies are banned. In particular, the regulation bans entire classes of chemicals, for example, PFAS, often known as forever chemicals, which are used to make toys water resistant. They're now banned in toys due to their persistence and health risks. It also bans the most harmful bisphenols like BPA, which leach from plastics. Additionally, allergenic fragrances are no longer allowed in toys for very younger children, any child under 3, or any toy meant to go into a child's mouth. Just to prevent any allergic reactions. The limits on heavy metals like mercury, cadmium, lead have been tightened, essentially minimizing any trace presence. Even nitrosilians, these are like cancer-causing substances that were sometimes found in toy materials like balloons or foam. They're now being strictly limited in all toys. So manufacturers will now have to perform more comprehensive chemical safety assessments for each toy. This means before a toy hits the market, the maker must evaluate all potential chemical hazards, not just one chemical at a time, but also the combined effect of the multiple substances a child could be opposed to. In summary, the EU is closing loopholes to ensure that toys are toxic-free and safe for children to handle and put in their mouths. These measures follow the EU's broader goal of toxin-free environments under initiatives like the Chemical Safety Strategy for Sustainability, reflecting the latest scientific consensus on protecting children's health. So we introduced the digital passport here. So another change is the introduction of the digital product passport for toys. So think of it as a digital ID card or electronic record for each toy product. Under the new regulation, every toy placed in the EU will need to have a digital product passport, which will commonly be provided in the form of a scannable QR code on the toy or its packaging. When you scan the QR code with a smartphone or a scanner, it will link you to an online data set about the toy. What information does it contain? So it'd be quite comprehensive. It includes a unique product identifier for the toy and the names and the address of the manufacturer and other responsible companies like importers. It also shows the toy's compliance details. For instance, it will reference to EU standards or regulations the toy complies with, and the toy CE marking, which is another sign of EU conformity. If the toy contains any allergic fragrances above, like from the chemicals, any threshold that has to be listed too. The digital passport can even include the toy safety instructions and a picture of the toy for easy identification. So essentially, it's a one-stop digital record proving that the toy meets all requirements. It replaces the old paper declaration of conformity with an accessible digital format. The benefits are big. Consumers will be able to scan the code and immediately see important safety information about a toy before buying or using it. For regulators and customs officers, the DPP is a bit of a game changer. So at the EU border, officials can now use a new IT system to automatically scan digital passports on incoming toy shipments. If a toy doesn't have a valid passport or shows non-compliance info, the shipment can be flagged for inspection or stopped right away. This could significantly reduce the number of unsafe toys entering the market. It also creates a level playing field. All toys made in the EU or imported, whether sold in a physical store or online, must transparently display their safety credentials. Legitimate manufacturers who invest in safety will benefit, while those trying to sneak dangerous toys in will find it a lot harder. For manufacturers and importers, this means that you'll need to generate a digital product passport for each toy model and keep it updated. The passport data will need to be kept available for at least 10 years. The European Commission will provide technical specifications on how to implement these passports, for example, the exact format of the data. So that'll happen within 1 year of the regulations entering into force. So there's still a little bit of time to get the system up and running. So overall, the DPP is a modern tool to boost transparency, enforcement, and toy safety. So enforcement is being significantly tightened, especially regarding online sale of toys. In the past, one big problem was that unsafe toys could be sold directly to consumers via online marketplaces or third-party sellers, sometimes coming straight from non-EU countries to bypass regulators. New regulation explicitly closes these loopholes. It makes it clear that online marketplaces have responsibility for toys sold on their platforms when the manufacturer or importer is outside of the EU. Online toy sellers and platforms must comply with the same safety requirements as any traditional store. Websites like Amazon, eBay, AliExpress will have to verify that toy listings show the required safety markings and information. For instance, before a consumer purchases a toy online, the platform must ensure the product page displays the CE mark, any applicable safety warnings like age restrictions or hazard warnings, and link to the QR code to the digital product passport. So this means that the buyers will see the toy's compliance credentials up front. If a seller can't provide these, the marketplace shouldn't allow the sale. So this is a big shift. It essentially makes the marketplace a gatekeeper to filter out unsafe toys. If an online platform fails to do this, they could be held accountable. The approach aligns with EU's broader product safety framework. In fact, the new rules remind marketplaces of their obligations under the EU General Product Safety Regulation. For market surveillance authorities, the regulation provides new tools and powers. Thanks to the DTP system, customs officials can automatically scan shipments, as I said before. So this gives inspectors clear authority to seize or recall toys that don't meet the requirements. So the main goal is to keep dangerous toys outside of Europe. The new enforcement measures aim to force everyone to play by the rules. So by ensuring imported online toys are being held to the same high standards as all EU toys being made, it protects children and prevents, it increases fair competition across Europe as well. So modern toys are not just plastic anymore or plush. Many are smart toys that can connect to phones or to the internet, have cameras, microphones, or even now AI features. The new regulation recognizes this and introduces specific safety provisions for digital and connected toys. One key requirement is that manufacturers of these toys must assess and mitigate risks to children's mental and psychological well-being. For example, if a toy has an interactive AI that chats with a child, the manufacturer needs to ensure this interaction won't harm the child's mental health or development. This could include avoiding frightening or inappropriate content or making sure that the toy is excessively addictive. This kind of consideration was not explicitly in the old directive, so it's a big step to include how it is now an essential safety requirement. Additionally, although the toy safety regulation itself is about physical safety, it acknowledges the importance of data protection and cybersecurity in connected toys. So we've all heard kind of stories of smart toys like Wi-Fi enabled teddy bears, dolls, robots that can be hacked and they can collect the children's personal data. So under the new rules, such toys will need to comply with relevant data protection laws and be secure against unauthorized access. In practice, this means stronger software security in toys, securing a more secure pairing process, so to prevent anybody else connecting to the toy, and then transparency about any data that the toy collects. The regulation ties in with the broader EU digital strategy. For instance, if an AI-powered toy could influence a child's behavior or learning, it might be considered a higher risk AI system under the forthcoming EU Artificial Intelligence Act, which could impose further requirements like human oversight. So, but not fully spelled out in the toy law, it's understood that any content that a toy exposes, any content a connected toy exposes to a child should be age appropriate and non-harmful. The onus is on the toy maker to consider these factors. Another aspect is parental controls and guidance. Toy manufacturers are encouraged to include features or instructions that enable parents to supervise digital aspects of toys. For instance, a smart toy might allow the parent to approve connections or monitor interactions. It isn't hard to mandate in the text, but aligns with the spirit of making toys safer. So what's the implications for manufacturers and stakeholders? For toy manufacturers, the implications are significant. Companies will need to carefully review their toy designs and materials in light of the new chemical bans. For example, if a certain plastic component used in a now banned flame retardant or plasticizer, it must be reformulated with a safer alternative. This can include R&D costs and resourcing of materials. manufacturers also need to enhance their internal testing programs. The regulation mandates a comprehensive safety assessment for each toy, covering not just chemical, mechanical, electrical, flammability, hygiene, and even emerging things like psychological safety. This is more broader than before, meaning product development teams will likely spend more time on risk analysis and mainly expert inputs like toxicologists or cybersecurity experts for connected toys. Compliance costs will and will likely rise. So it'd be like additional lab tests for things like endocrine disruptors or new documentation requirements. Companies do have a transition period. I'll cover that in the timeline. Yeah, and investing in safety does tend to pay off by avoiding recalls and protecting brand reputation. Another new task for manufacturers is implementing DPP. Firms will have to collect all the required information, technical files, test reports, compliance declarations, and upload it or link it to a digital system that generates a QR for the toy. This might mean creating databases for the new software. Large companies might integrate it into their already current IT systems, while smaller toy makers may rely on a EU-provided templates or third-party services. The EU has recognised that this can be challenging, especially with small small to medium enterprises. So it is tasked with issuing practical guidelines and even automatic translation tool to help companies create digital passports in all necessary languages. So help is on the way, but companies should start preparing their data now. And packaging and product design must also need slight changes. For instance, packaging might have to allocate space for QR codes or digital links. For importers and retailers, if you import toys, you now must double check your foreign suppliers are now using these stricter rules. The importer's name will be tied to the digital passport, and at the EU border, you'll have to submit the DPP data for customs to review. And as I said earlier on, customs can scan that, and it can either make or break if it comes onto the EU market. So we'll continue on now. So the timeline for implementation. So we've seen that so we'll go over to key milestones for the regulatory changes. So everyone knows what to expect. So July 2023, the European Commission officially unveiled its proposal for a new toy safety regulation. So this is when the law was introduced. It explained all the intended changes we've discussed. Then throughout 2024, the proposal was debated, it was refined. The European Parliament took its first stance by March 2024. It suggested amendments like stricter measures on chemicals. And then the EU member states and council also formed their position. The general approach by May last year. And then April then of this year, the Parliament and Council came together and reached a provisional agreement. It's kind of a major step now. So this means that it was going to the final version of the regulation. And then last week on the 11th of June, the text was finalised. So it's on the compromise text now with a view to agreement, and it has been approved. So we're looking at now at the next plenary session, either July or September, that this is going to enter into force. So then you'll have a transition period, which is fairly generous. It's 54 months entered into force. It's still, I know, 4 or 5 years. It seems like a long period, but there is a lot of things to do in this regulation to kind of get yourself up to speed. So thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I'll go on to the next speaker, please.
Thanks, Andrew. That was really interesting. Really, really good. Good. Thank you. So just some other trends quickly, just to pull you through them. The DPP isn't just for these regulations. We're seeing it as well under the new construction products regulations. So there will be a declaration of performance and conformity, safety information, all this in the DPP for construction materials. There is a DPP for a vehicle passport as well, which is on the cards. There's a draft regulation for circularity of vehicles being discussed. And in China, just to mention, it's not all about the EU. They are developing DPP over there as well. And there's news about a digital battery ID card in China. They have also developing a draft standard for general requirements for DPP as well. And finally, the key takeaways, just some of the compliance deadlines to watch for batteries. As Dila mentioned, the 18th of February 2027, we're going to see the implementation of the battery passport. ESPR, we have the consultation for service providers. You can come until the 1st of July. The timeline for adoption of eco-design energy labels starts in 2026. Timeline for adoption of new products under ESPR will start in 2027. And also there's the development of the standards by the CN and Senelec. And as for toys, we're expecting formal adoption in July or September. And as Andrew mentioned, there will be a 4 to 5 year period for all these requirements to be implemented due to the complexity of this product group. So thank you, everyone. I'm just going to pass you back to Orla.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. As you can all see here with the time, unfortunately, we won't be able to cover the Q&A session live, but I'd like to thank you all so much for the huge amount of questions that have been submitted already so far. And if there are any more that want to be addressed after this webinar, our SMEs will be answering them post-webinar and reaching out to you directly. So please do still use the Ask a Question widget, but we've had a huge amount of interest, which is fantastic. But yeah, I'm just conscious of the time. But we'll follow up with you all after the webinar. And with that, I just want to thank you all for tuning in with us today. We hope you found the presentation helpful, and we look forward to welcoming you in our upcoming webinars. You can check out our resources on our website to stay updated and to access our latest white papers, blogs, webinars, both upcoming and on-demand webinars. With that in mind, our next webinar will be conducted in Japanese, covering global battery and sustainability regulatory trends, what's changing and why it matters, and it's scheduled for July 2nd, with many more to come throughout the rest of the year. So we do hope to see you there. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you at our next webinar.